The Street Fighters, potentially some of the most iconic characters in video game history. New and old fighters alike, you can't deny how memorable some of them are. But a few do stand out from the rest, especially characters that have a lot of physical imagery that relate to others. Where did Sagat's scar come from? Well, Ryu totally diced up his chest with a sick-ass Shoryuken. How did Ryu get the red headband that he didn't have in the Street Fighter Alphas? And it turns out Ken gave it to him during their early training. And now with Street Fighter V and Street Fighter Resurrection right around the corner, the one character that's gone through the most dramatic of physical changes is absolutely Charlie, who is now known as Nash. Some of you might be curious how Charlie went from his first appearance in Street Fighter Alpha to his new look in Street Fighter V, and I wouldn't blame you because he went from this to this. But first we gotta go back to the beginning, the very start of things, which is back in Street Fighter II, where Charlie trained with his closest partner, Guile. Now I know what you're gonna say. Your early impressions of what Guile is capable of is pretty similar in Street Fighter to what Charlie could do. They both have sonic booms, and they both essentially have a flash kick. They've also got extremely extravagant blonde hairstyles, which must have been a requirement for the secret military team that they were both partners on. Now, the Charlie as we know actually doesn't exist in the Street Fighter II universe because he's technically dead at that point. If we go back to the Street Fighter Alphas, which take place before Street Fighter II, Charlie and Guile are working together to take down an evil drug lord monster by the name, and you might have heard him before, M. Bison. Or is it Vega? Well, it's Vega in Japan, but it's M. Bison in the US. You know what? Don't worry about it. Until this eventually happens. After Charlie is murdered, Guile's entire focus in the Street Fighter series is to locate and destroy the man that killed his partner. That, of course, was M. Bison. Man, this guy's really a dickhead. First Chun-Li's dad and now Charlie?
You killed my...
Yes, I killed your father. I killed my father too, and you don't hear me whining about it.
But there's a big gap here. You see, Charlie's first and main appearance was in the Street Fighter Alpha series. He was in Alpha 1, 2, and the several versions of Street Fighter Alpha 3, and each kind of has a different scenario of how Charlie actually dies. Killed from a helicopter, or heroically sacrificing himself via giant explosion. Well, considering the story in Street Fighter V right now, I'm gonna say it's the first one. Glorious death via helicopter. Gruesome. And this is where this thing gets a little weird because Charlie makes other appearances in fighting games around this time frame. Let's take a look. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Technically a spin-off series, but Charlie is playable amongst this roster next to other Street Fighter characters that heavily resemble their alpha versions. But what happens in this ending is pretty interesting because it contradicts almost everything else that's happening at the time. Charlie is abducted by Shadowloo, and they're doing some morbid, sick-ass experiments on the guy. Now we're heavily assuming that Shadowloo finds Charlie's body after he gets killed by the helicopter, completely validating that the death via explosion is the equivalent of Han not shooting first.
Seriously, we know what happened. You can't change the lore.
Now, according to the comics, which I recommend you check out, which is the life and death of Charlie Nash made by Udon, Charlie becomes a puppet of Shadowloo, a weapon to execute their devious commands, making perfect sense for the next couple of games he'd make an appearance in, which is Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. Charlie was actually a playable character in this game, but completely missing from the main roster. He's a secret character by the name of Shadow. This is an awesome secret character because it's a nod to the story from the previous games and what happened to Charlie after he died. He also has this really cool effect, this Psycho Power move that's attached to all of his special moves, further cementing that he's being controlled by Bison in this time period. He'd later make an even smaller appearance in the next game, Marvel vs. Capcom, who shows up as a limited use assist character and is also not on the main character select palette. Yeah, they're really trying to make this guy a secret. And now we ignore the Street Fighter 3 series completely because everyone is hella old in those games. Seriously, it's the most confusing thing in the world when your Street Fighter timeline begins with Street Fighter 1, goes to Street Fighter Alpha, and then to Street Fighter 2, moves to Street Fighter 4, parks itself at Street Fighter 5, and then technically ends at Street Fighter 3. What the f***? We all know it's really weird, don't worry about it. And now we're at Street Fighter 5. Charlie has a new body and seemingly his consciousness is back. He's no longer the psychotic puppet of Shadowloo executing their orders, meaning he hates Bison. And similar to Guile, because these guys are the dude bro duo, they're both hunting down and want to take out Bison for the same reason. He killed Charlie. But the connections to the Illuminati remain, and this is the only connection that Nash or Charlie has to the Street Fighter III series, because the Illuminati is the Grandmaster Final Boss organization of those games, which is led by none other than the two-tone mother fifer, Gil. However, the Street Fighter V story right now doesn't have a lot of details connecting Charlie to the Illuminati, but there's a huge hint and a lot of stuff within the comic books. But until we get the big cinematic story mode for Street Fighter V coming in June, there is Street Fighter Resurrection premiering on Go 90 Tuesday, March 15th. And that just about does it for Nash. Or Charlie, who was killed by Vega. I mean Bison. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks a ton for watching, guys, and don't forget to check out Street Fighter Resurrection premiering on Go 90. I'm also going to have Week Ofs featuring gameplay of Nash, Ryu, and Ken on this channel coming up very soon. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.
Where's Bison?